Easter, a time to celebrate the resurrection of Jesus Christ, a time where people can be together with family, a time to look for hidden Easter eggs. But what if some scary horror stories happened at Easter? Grab a blanket, turn off your lights, and don't go looking for Easter eggs alone. The Easter Bunny may be very scary. House-sitting horror. This happened to my sister about 15 years ago, when she was in high school and I was in middle school. Our mom worked as a house cleaner and always became good friends with everyone whose home she cleaned. One of the homes was owned by an older couple who had no kids, but had a huge house and a really nice pool. They always invited me and my siblings to come swim in it. The husband worked as a COO of a large airline company, and they lived in a really nice neighborhood on a large lot with forest of trees. When you were in their backyard, you couldn't see any other houses at all, just trees. It felt really secluded and almost spa-like, with a waterfall and a short iron fence, so you had a good view of the forest. Their house was really angular and architecturally interesting, with multiple levels made from walls of stone, even on the inside. Pretty much every room had huge floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over the backyard and gave great views during the day. At night, however, the reflection from the inside lights prevented you from seeing out, so it was always a little unnerving to walk by them, since you couldn't see what was out there. The couple also decorated with old Native American art and masks, which was a little creepy to a middle schooler. But the couple wasn't creepy, so I never got too scared. They had an older golden retriever named Samson that lived up to his name and was massive, but had a sweet and gentle temperament. They also had recently rescued a husky mix named Sadie, who was quite the opposite. Psycho Sadie, as we so lovingly called her, had intense separation and stranger anxiety. She would destroy their house when they left her inside, jump their short fence if they left her outside, and if they took her with them to run errands, she would destroy their car and howl nonstop until they returned. So since they were wealthy and had extra money, they would pay for me or my sister to come over and dog sit while they were out. We got paid $20 an hour, so we were always excited to go over there and watch their cable and swim in their awesome pool. Normally, everything would be fine and both dogs would just lay around, but occasionally Sadie would realize I was a stranger and go nuts and start barking at me. One time, she backed me into a corner and would not stop barking, and I watched her eyes literally turn red. I was convinced she was going to attack me, but she eventually calmed down. This was after I got up on a couch and showed her how big or not big that I was. But I digress. This particular incident happened over Easter weekend, while the homeowners were out of town for 2 days. They were paying for my sister to stay there over the weekend, and I stayed with her the first night because it was a big house and kinda scary to stay there all alone. And we stayed up watching chick flicks and eating junk. The next day, we swam in their pool and hung out. But for some reason, I didn't spend the night again. And I'm so glad that I didn't, because what happened that night scarred my sister for life. It all started when my sister was working out on their treadmill. Their workout room was on the bottom floor of their home, which was a walkout basement. Just outside the door was a huge sliding glass door that opened to their patio and pool. She had the TV on in their workout room watching the 10 Commandments that was always on the night before Easter. As she was running, she thought she heard the house alarm beep. It usually did that whenever a door was opened. She stopped the treadmill and went out to look around and saw that the sliding glass door was open. Now, this door is huge and there is no way it could have gotten open by itself, so she was instantly freaked. However, the dogs were just laying there in the workout room and she figured they would have gone up to investigate if someone had come inside, since they have those kinds of instincts, and because Sadie was so schizo and hated strangers. So she made excuses that she had accidentally left the door open, and she must have imagined the beep of the alarm, and it could have been the TV or the treadmill. So she closed the door and locked the door, and went back to working out. But a couple minutes later, she had the distinct feeling of someone watching her. She looked around but couldn't see anyone. She finished her workout, but couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. So she decided to just go to bed because she was a little creeped out and just wanted to forget about it. She went around and made sure all the doors were locked. The owners didn't give her the alarm code, so she couldn't set it. She took a shower and locked herself in the guest room with both dogs, just in case, and eventually fell asleep. A couple hours later, she awoke to both dogs growling at the door of the room. Now, it was fairly normal for Psycho Sadie to growl and bark for no reason, but Samson never barked or showed any signs of aggressiveness at all, so immediately my sister knew something was up. She was shaking and trying to convince herself that the dogs had just heard an animal and that it was nothing. But then she heard that dreadful door alarm beep. She called my dad in a panic, crying and screaming, and he told her to hang up and call the police while he was on his way over. She called the cops, and my dad made the 15-minute drive in under 5 minutes. When she opened the bedroom door to let my dad in the house, the dogs took off running and barking through the house and downstairs to the basement. My sister ran screaming all the way through the house to the front door to let my dad in, and he took a quick look around the upstairs level with his gun, but didn't see anything unusual. The police arrived a few minutes later and looked around and found that the back gate was open, as well as a sliding glass door again, but not enough to let the dogs out. Just barely, like it had been slammed shut and bounced back open a little. They said it did look like someone had entered the house through the sliding glass door because the lock was tampered with, but they determined that whoever it was hadn't stolen or disturbed anything. When my dad asked why someone would break in and not do anything, especially with the dogs locked up, the police said that they had been notified by the homeowner earlier that month that the husband had received a death threat because of some decisions he made at his job that put a lot of people out of work. They had gone to the police about it, but didn't bother telling my sister to keep an eye out for anything suspicious. Thanks a lot for the heads up. Needless to say, we never dog sat for them again, and they moved out of the state within a few months because he lost his job, and he deserved it. Guns drawn on Easter. I just gotten out of a really shitty relationship with a guy I've been living with for 3 years. He was a really pretty boy who looked like Johnny Depp, but he liked to steal all my money while I was at work and throw crazy parties. I got tired of him stealing and coming home to emo kids asleep all over my house, so I left him. I didn't want anything but my stuff, and I let him keep the house and cars I brought him. I just wanted my sanity back. I moved back in with my granny. I'm her favorite grandchild, and she spoiled me as she does. I had recently reconnected with my best friend that I've known since kindergarten, Chris. I was hanging out with Chris on my back porch one morning when the subject of boys got brought up. Chris is gay, and we often talked about boys together. He asked if I was seeing anybody, and I told him that I wasn't. It had only been a few months since I left the money leech, and I didn't think I was ready to trust anyone. Chris said that he knew the perfect guy for me. I said that I don't think there is such a thing. He begs me to meet this guy. I reluctantly sigh and tell my granny that I'm going on an adventure with Chris. We talked as we drove, and he tells me that this guy has been in love with me since we were kids. He told me that this was this little boy, Quinn, that used to follow me around. I told him that I thought Quinn was a lot younger than us. He told me that Quinn is just short like me. He called Quinn and told me to talk to him. I did, and he seems really sweet, but a little airheaded. We show up at his house, and he's really pretty. He's also very sweet, has a good job, his own car, and owns his own company. We start hanging out a lot, and eventually started dating. He buys me presents like nice jewelry and Prada sunglasses. He told me his girl only deserved the best. I told him I couldn't accept all these gifts, but he would just dump them in my car or purse when I wasn't looking, so I just learned to take them. He wanted to always call me and talk for hours and wanted me to call when I got home from his house. I thought he was sweet and just wanted to be sure I got home safely. The reality set in rather quickly. He introduced me to his entire family within a couple of days of us dating. I usually don't introduce guys to my family until we're serious, but whatever. Upon meeting his mother, I learned that it's her house and he lives with her. I also learned that he has no job other than doing odd jobs for his dad. I was speechless. He also lied about being my age. I was like 24 and he had just turned 18 like the day or so before we started dating. I was so upset I didn't know how to feel. He begged me not to leave him and to take him to my play rehearsal the next day. He showed up in my driveway just as I was leaving for the theater. Chris drove him there and tells me we need to sort our shit out. He said if Quinn was gay, he would be all over him and not to leave him over a few small lies. The whole drive was awkward. I don't want to talk to this guy. I want him gone. He pulls out a diamond ring and tries to propose to me. I tell him no, but he slides the rock on my finger anyway. He said I need to think about it. I got to the theater and shit just got downhill from there. He embarrassed me in front of my friends with his ignorance and childishness and threw a bitch fit because my other best friend Mikey gave me a piggyback ride. He storms out, and then his mother started calling to check up on him. I decided I was done. After rehearsal, I got a friend to go with me to drive him home. I tried to give his ring back, but he won't take it. I leave and go to a bar with my fellow actors. I told him that was why I had to take him home so early. Driving back, I see flashing lights in my rearview mirror and hear yelling. Chris and Quinn are following me. I pull up into the bar, and Chris throws Quinn and myself at each other and yells that we need to talk. I break up with Quinn as he starts throwing a bitch fit. I walk into the bar with my friend. I spend the night at Mikey's for a few days. When I return home, I have tons of harassing phone calls. He called me and my grandparents every few hours. He even had Chris help. Everywhere I went, he was there. He stalked me at home, made me run from a theater during a movie, and followed my car. Chris helped him do all of this. He pulled a gun on my family while we were outside during Easter. I was helping the little kids hunt eggs. He cruised by several times and then pulled his gun. He creeped by with his gun pointed at us. I filed a restraining order that day. I moved in with Mikey so he would leave my grandparents alone. I went nowhere without at least 2 guys with me at all times. I thought any minute he would come and kill me. I felt hunted, like a deer in the woods. I was lucky. He shot up the car of his next girlfriend's, while her 2-year-old daughter was inside. I was damn lucky. The Bunny Man knocks. It was about 10:30 p.m. when he knocked. We lived in a very rural town in Florida, so it's rare to have people knock on our door. Mostly it's when they get stuck on the dirt road outside our house. This was not the case. It was late, and the folks and I had settled in to watch a movie when it happened. I looked out the window and saw a pair of ears on the porch. My dad swings the door open, and there stands a man in a full rabbit costume. Taken aback, my dad just walks outside. Now, my dad is a little on the short side, 5'6", but he is built like a small tank, so he's still pretty imposing. He steps outside with the guy, and all I hear is, "Hi, I'm the neighborhood rabbit." My dad walks in a little bit later, and we hear the guy driving off. It wasn't over yet though. We look outside, and the bunny is at our neighbor's house. Our neighbor is a sweet little old lady, so we get concerned when the bunny walks in and doesn't walk out. My dad gets a small gun, loads it, and walks to my neighbor's house. A few minutes later, we see the rabbit walk out of the house. He walks to his truck and begins talking on his cell phone. From what we can hear, he was commenting that he couldn't get any today, but he'd try again tomorrow. We don't know who he was or what he was doing, but when a man in a rabbit costume knocks on your door, it's a good idea not to answer. How to not make friends with new neighbors. So I know I said I never had anything happen that wasn't really creep-worthy. However, I had dinner with my dad recently, and he reminded me of this story. We were relatively new to the neighborhood at this time, having only lived there for a few months. We were getting to know people on the street, but we weren't super close with any particular family. I was 12 or so at the time, and my brother was 4. Now this happened on early Easter Sunday morning. This is important. My room has a huge window right next to my bed, so my dog loves sleeping with me. He was a very docile dog, rarely ever barking or making a fuss. I woke up that morning very early in the morning to him growling. I looked out the window and didn't see anything, so I assumed all was well and tried to go back to sleep. My dog, however, kept growling louder until he finally barked like a maniac, like big fuck you barks. That's when I realized there were 2 men in my driveway, climbing up the front stairs to our doorway wearing all black. My father came barreling into my room and screamed at these guys through my window to get the fuck off his property, and asking them who the fuck they thought they were creeping around our house so early in the morning. One of them responded, and my dad couldn't really hear them. He yelled at them again, and finally he understood what he was saying. "It's Sam and Joe! We're being the Easter Bunny!" Sam and Joe were a father and son from down the street who liked to put flower bunny prints on people's driveways and front walks, leading to a basket of candy at the doorway for any children in the home. They didn't inform us they were going to be skulking around our house early in the morning, which thus led to my dog flipping out. They did it every year I lived there, although I think they stopped once my brother turned 13. They are a really great family, and my dog never barked again. Just holy hell. A little forewarning could have been nice.